How much you think a OWI will cost you financially? The average first offense OWI will cost approximately $10,000 on up. Here are the penalties for a first conviction OWI. You will have your driver's license suspended for 6 to 9 months. You will have fines from $150 to $300. Mandatory alcohol and other drug assessments paid by you. For a BAC of 0.15 or higher, you will have to have the ignition interlock installed for every vehicle registered or titled to you for 1 year. Each device has a monthly fee. SR22 high-risk automobile insurance. The conviction stays on your record for life. Occupational licenses require the ignition interlock installation and service charges, fines for noncompliance, $150 to $1,000 for repeat offenders. Hardship license. Any drivers whose license is revoked for an OWI conviction can request a hardship or occupational license. Judges are permitted to issue one of these restricted licenses, which can only be used for travel related to work, school, or treatment purposes. You will also have attorney fees, lost time from work, etc. For a first OWI conviction with a passenger 16 years of age or younger, the penalties include jail time of at least 5 days to 6 months. The presence of a minor passenger also raises the monetary fine to at least $350 up to a maximum of $1,100 and increases the license revocation period 12 to 18 months. OWI with injuries. Other factors that can affect the consequences of a OWI conviction is whether anyone else was injured or killed in connection to the offense. Wisconsin statute says that it is unlawful to cause an injury while driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs. This law applies not only when a driver's BAC tests at a level above the legal threshold, but also if there's any detectable amount of a controlled substance in the person's blood. Because some drugs take several days to completely clear the bloodstream, this means that a driver can potentially be charged with OWI drugs long after the intoxicating effects of the drug have worn off. Even with no prior drunk driving offenses, a driver convicted of causing injury during OWI can be sentenced with up to a year in jail and fined as much as $2,000. They can also have their driver's license revoked for up to 2 years and may be required to use an ignition interlock device for as much as 2 additional years after the driver's license is reinstated. The penalties for OWI with injuries increase sharply if the driver has had 1 or more prior impaired driving convictions or if the injuries involved are severe or fatal. For drivers with prior convictions, OWI resulting in injuries is a Class H felony and can result in up to 6 years of imprisonment and fines of up to $10,000. As discussed above, these penalties can be doubled to 12 years in prison and $20,000 in fines if a passenger under the age of 16 was present in the vehicle. As you can imagine, if it's a second, third, fourth, or on up OWI convictions, the fines and jail time will increase substantially. As we have discussed, the consequences of an OWI conviction can become far more serious when injuries are involved, and the rising penalties do not stop there. Certain types of injuries can produce even more penalties if they result in death or great bodily harm. Under Wisconsin law, an OWI-related injury is considered great bodily harm if it creates a substantial risk of death or causes serious permanent disfigurement or causes a permanent or long-term impairment of a body part or organ or loss thereof, or involves other serious bodily injury. A driver convicted of causing great bodily harm by OWI in Wisconsin is guilty of a Class F felony, which carries a maximum sentence of up to 12.5 years in prison and $25,000 in fines. When an OWI accident results in fatalities, the OWI driver can be charged with homicide, which is a Class D felony. Convicted OWI drivers can be fined up to $100,000 and sentenced up to 25 years in prison for a first offense. For those with 1 or more prior impaired driving convictions, the offense elevates to a Class C felony with prison sentence of up to 40 years.
Don't drink and drive. It is so not worth it. But people do drink and drive in our state. Here's your number on that.
Approximately 28,000 to 30,000 persons are arrested for OWI a year. That's approximately 76 to 82 OWIs issued per day.
A person will drive approximately 80 times a year under the influence before they actually get caught. 7% of the driving population account for 66% of all alcohol-related accidents, although 80% of adult drivers admit they have driven after drinking.
7% of the driving population account for 66% of all alcohol-related accidents, although 80% of adult drivers admit to have driven while drinking. 70% of OWIs are first-time offenders, while 30% reoffend within 10 years of the first conviction. 51% get the second OWI within 1 year of the first offense. It is also interesting to note that 50 to 75% of the mentioned repeat offenders do not have a driver's license or car insurance. There are different times and days that are impacted more than other days and times. 36% of the crashes happen at night versus 9% during the day, and 31% of deadly crashes happen on the weekend versus 15% on weekdays.